Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Yeshichanza. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Monday, the 7th of June. India reopens major cities as new COVID-19 infections hit 2-month low. At least 40 killed, hundreds injured in train crash in southern Pakistan. And US Special Envoy Khalilzad meets Afghan leaders in Kabul to push for peace. And now for all the details. Key Indian cities reopened for business on Monday with long queues for buses in the financial hub of Mumbai, while traffic returned to the roads of New Delhi after a devastating second wave of coronavirus that killed hundreds of thousands. India's COVID-19 tally rose to 28.9 million on Monday, with 100,636 new cases reported in the past 24 hours, lowest since April 6. Indian capital New Delhi partially reopened after almost 2 months of lockdown on Monday, a day after Delhi government announced on Sunday that restrictions on transport, markets and other economic activities will be eased after a lockdown of 7 weeks was imposed to curb the spread of coronavirus. Delhi has been the worst affected city by the virus in the second wave of the pandemic. Markets and shopping complexes, with an exception of weekly markets, are allowed to open between 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time on an odd-even basis, according to their shop numbers, while Metro has been directed to operate at 50% sitting capacity. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, in a tweet on Monday, warned against laxity and urged people to take all precautions to prevent COVID-19 infection.
नहीं सर, एक सीट छोड़ के जो है सेटिंग है और बाकी प्रॉपर मास्क वगैरह है, बाकी सिक्योरिटी चेकिंग भी चल रही है अंदर, तो इस समय सब कुछ सही है अभी मेट्रो के अंदर। सही लग रहा है आप लोगों को? हाँ, गवर्नमेंट का डिसीजन सही है अभी तो।
Meanwhile, authorities in the western state of Maharashtra, home to financial capital Mumbai, allowed businesses to run until late afternoon, staffed with half their employees, and opened gyms, salons and spas, though cinemas and malls are to stay shut. The reopening efforts come as authorities struggle to vaccinate the population of nearly 1.4 billion in a strategy officials say is the only way to limiting any third wave of infections. India's COVID-19 tally rose to 28.9 million on Monday, with 100,636 new cases reported in the past 24 hours. The single-day spike of COVID-19 cases is found to be the lowest in over 2 months. Meanwhile, the government has ramped up vaccination drive across the country. India took its vaccination drive to remote villages in tough terrains of Himalayan Jammu and Kashmir territory to vaccinate its citizens over the weekend. 3 types of vaccines are being administered to the people in India, namely Covishield, Covaxin and the Russia-made vaccine Sputnik V. In news from Pakistan, a train in Pakistan smashed into derailed carriages of another train on Monday, killing at least 40 people in the latest accident, which highlighted the perilous state of the railway system in the country. The death toll was likely to rise, officials said, as rescue operations were still underway till the last reports came in.
A collision between 2 passenger express trains in southern Pakistan killed at least 40 people on Monday, and the death toll was likely to rise as rescuers were still trying to access several mangled coaches, a police official said. The accident occurred in Ghodki district of southern Sindh province after the coaches of one train, the Millet Express, derailed and fell across the opposite track, where they were hit by another train, the Sir Syed Express. A spokesperson for Pakistan Railways said in a statement, the bodies of the deceased had been transported to surrounding hospitals and rescue operations were still underway till the last reports came in.
डेस्क कायम किया जा चुका है जहां पर लोगों का सामान और लोगों को इन्फॉर्मेशन दी जाए, उनके प्यारों को, उनके करीबी लोगों को कि उनके लोगों की इस वक्त हाल क्या है। इसके साथ साथ आप देख रहे हैं कि रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन जारी है, जिसमें हमारे पास आर्मी के जवान, रेंजर्स के जवान, जिला इंतजामिया, जिससे हेल्थ मैनेजमेंट टीम, तमाम लोग यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं और हम इसको तेज़ी से कर रहे हैं।
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan expressed his condolences on Twitter and said he was ordering a comprehensive investigation into the railway safety issue. Accidents on the decrepit system are common.
Moving on, Pakistani dissidents took part in a massive anti-China protest in Paris over the past weekend, which voiced concerns over human rights violations by Beijing. During the protest, exiled Pakistani journalist Taha Siddiqui highlighted China's exploitation of natural resources in Balochistan and displacement of the indigenous Baloch people due to the China-Pakistan economic corridor.
Pakistani dissidents joined a massive anti-China protest in Paris over the past weekend, which voiced concerns over human rights abuses committed by the Chinese Communist Party and its imperialist designs. Dissidents from across Asian and African countries raised slogans against China's occupation and exploitation of their land and resources during the protest and demanded the international community to boycott China and its products. Taha Siddiqui, a Pakistani journalist living in exile in France, highlighted the situation in Balochistan, which has witnessed an increase in human rights violation since the launch of CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in the region.
China is colonizing parts of Pakistan. China is colonizing Balochistan in the name of economic interests, in the name of economic development, but it's actually not economic development. Those are debt traps that China is setting. We've seen that China has done that in Africa, China has done that in other parts of Asia, and of course with those debt traps also comes human rights abuses.
Activists have long blamed CPEC, which reaches out from China's Xinjiang region to Balochistan's Gwadar port, has only brought death and destruction for the local people instead of economic opportunities, and accused Pakistani forces operate with impunity in the region to ensure safe passage to China.
In news from Sri Lanka, flooding and landslides fueled by torrential rains killed at least 16 people and affected over 270,000 in Sri Lanka over the past 3 days, local media reports said on Monday. Rains have been pounding 6 districts of the island nation since last Thursday, and many houses, paddy fields and roads have been left inundated. At least 16 people were killed and over 270,000 affected in Sri Lanka due to heavy rain and the landslides triggered by them in the past 3 days, local reports said on Monday, with more than 15,000 seeking refuge in relief centres on higher ground. The military was seen delivering food to people whose homes were waist deep with water, and Navy boats were out rescuing marooned residents over the past weekend. Sri Lanka's southern and western plains were the most affected in the last 72 hours due to the monsoon rains.
ගංගතුක මෙහෙමයි ගංගතුක දැන් ගලවලා දවස් දෙකක් විතර වෙනවා. මිනිස්සු විපතටපත් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. කොටසක් ගාමිණී විස්කෝලේ විදුවලට ආවිල්ලා තියෙනවා මං හිතන්නේ 95ක් විතර කට්ටිය.
The rains increased water levels in irrigation and hydroelectricity reservoirs that had been filled by heavy downpours caused by cyclones in past weeks. Authorities released the excess water into rivers, which caused water levels to rise and overflow into low-lying areas, reports suggested. Sri Lanka's Navy said it has deployed 33 teams to flooded areas, which so far has rescued more than 60 people stranded by the floodwaters. In news from Afghanistan, U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad, along with the U.S. interagency delegation on Sunday, met with top Afghan leadership, including President Ashraf Ghani, and discussed peace efforts and continuation of bilateral ties. This came as peace negotiations with the Taliban have remained stalled in Doha, while violence continues unabated in parts of Afghanistan.
U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and a U.S. interagency delegation met the top Afghan political leadership, including President Ashraf Ghani, on Sunday, and discussed continuation of political, diplomatic, defense and economic ties. In the meeting with Abdullah, the head of Afghanistan's High Council for National Reconciliation, both the sides discussed the new chapter of cooperation between the U.S. and Afghanistan post the beginning of the troop withdrawal, the peace process and other relevant matters of mutual interest. The U.S. State Department in a statement said the delegation will also travel to Doha, where Khalilzad will continue to encourage both the Afghan government and the Taliban to make tangible progress towards a political settlement in Afghanistan. Reports suggest a majority of the Afghan Republic negotiators returned to Doha last week with the hope to resume the stalled talks with the Taliban since April following the US announcement of withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan by September 11. This comes as violence has also continued unabated in parts of the country despite a 3-day Eid ceasefire in May.
More on news from Afghanistan. Teenager Fatima Noori and her fellow pupils hug and pray as they gather in their Kabul classroom, just weeks after bomb exploded right outside the school gates, killing scores of their classmates. The attack on May 8 killed at least 80 and wounded some 160, most of them girls. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast.
Group hugs, lighting candles in remembrance and meditating. 15-year-old Fatima Noori and her classmates are trying to overcome the trauma they suffered after a massive bomb went off outside their school gate in Kabul last month. The attack on May 8 killed at least 80 and wounded some 160, most of them girls, attending the Sayyid ul Shuhada High School. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast, but the minority Hazara neighborhood where the school is located has repeatedly been targeted by militants. Fatima said her resolve had grown since then and she was determined to return to school, even with the potential threat of another explosion. The school is still closed, but a local NGO and the Ministry of Public Health have been holding psychotherapy classes there for girls to help with any trauma. The United States and many other Western nations have touted girls' education as one of the key successes of years of foreign presence in Afghanistan. But security is deteriorating as foreign forces prepare to leave later this year, emboldening some hardline Islamist groups to threaten years of progress in girls' education. During the Taliban's hardline rule from 1996 until their ouster in 2001, girls were blocked from school. Nearly all women had to quit work, their movement was restricted, and a strict dress code enforced. The Taliban have denied any responsibility and condemned the bloodshed.
In a bid to raise awareness about the seriousness of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, even though the cases dwindled across the country, members of a voluntary humanitarian organization in India's northern Jammu and Kashmir territory resorted to a quirky campaign by wearing COVID-19 virus-shaped helmets in public places. Volunteers and members of a voluntary humanitarian organization in India's federal Jammu and Kashmir territory this weekend resorted to a quirky campaign to generate awareness about the seriousness of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, even though the cases dwindled across the country. Volunteers of Red Cross Society donning coronavirus-themed helmets and holding placards roamed on the streets of the territory's Jammu city and urged people to strictly adhere to the COVID-19 appropriate behavior as the pandemic was still persistent.
कि ये जैसे धीरे धीरे गवर्नमेंट अब डील दे रही है, लोग बाहर निकल रहे हैं, अब लोगों को पता होना चाहिए कि साथ में हमारे केसेस भी बढ़ रहे हैं और डेथ्स भी बहुत बढ़ रही हैं. तो हमारा यही है कि हमने आज मार्च निकाली है, लोगों को अवेयर करें कि भाई अभी तक कोरोना ख़त्म नहीं हुआ है, तो वो अब सारे अपने SOPs फॉलो करें, मास्क डालें, डिस्टेंस रखें.
In northern Chandigarh city, Ravi Sharma, an artist, painted his garages tour with graffiti to ignite a ray of hope in the hearts of the people and express gratitude to the frontline workers taking on coronavirus.
मुझे लगा कि अपना गैराज का डोर है ये और इसी पे एक होप क्रिएट करने के लिए लिखा जाए, कुछ बनाया जाए ताकि जब भी कोई आसपास गुजरता है उसको ऐसे लगे कि हाँ भाई होप है. होप इस चीज़ की कि एक दिन ये सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. होप इस चीज़ की कि जो लोग हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हुए हैं वो ठीक होकर अपने घर वापस आएंगे. तो एक होप उन सबके दिलों में जगाने के लिए मुझे लगा कि होप ही हमें लिखना चाहिए.
Graffiti depicting precautionary measures against the deadly virus are becoming a common trend in India, with artists depicting colorful messages and tributes to the health workers and police personnel in the fight against coronavirus. Meanwhile, India's tally of coronavirus infections now stands at 28.9 million. Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on facebook.com/AsAsia Newsline and follow us on Twitter @AsAsia Newsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.